So today I'm going to do a video about dealing with large blocks of code in your auras. You might find that you have functions that are very long and they're difficult to work with in the built-in text editor. You might have stuff where you're copying and pasting it a lot. You have maybe some code to round numbers or to convert to percentages or to abbreviate names, and you want to use that not just in one or two auras, but maybe in lots of different auras, and also in your nameplates or on your unit frames. And now you've got multiple places to make edits if you want to make a change. And you end up with redundancy, and if you fix a bug in one place, you might forget it somewhere else. My example is going to be just a really big function that's a bit annoying to deal with. Let's imagine I've designed an aura to scream song lyrics. Perhaps I've joined an RP guild and I really want to smite people. And whenever I do that, I want to yell out a commandment. So I'm just going to bring up weak auras and make a new whatever. Let's just go with an icon. Doesn't matter. Actually, let's make a text one. I have a good idea for this. So I'll delete. So I'm going to make a new text aura. And I'm going to make my trigger an event. And it's going to be a combat log event. And it's going to be spellcast success. And the source will be me. And the spell name will be smite. And I'm going to make this aura last for, let's say, 3 seconds. And I'm going to call this something like thou shalt always kill. So I have my aura made up here. And for my display, I want to do some text. Now, what I could do is just write a function in here. I can hit Control-A, %C. So now I can write a custom function. And if I bring up the text editor, I have this box where I can write stuff. So I can go function, and I put some round brackets and end. And now I can do whatever it is I want in here. As long as I return a string, weak auras will display it. So I could do something simple like return, hello, I am the Lord. And if I hit done, whenever I smite, we get my little aura in the middle of my screen here, and it'll go away after a couple of seconds. But that's not really good enough. I wanted to do lots of interesting things. I'll make this a little bit bigger so it's easy to see. And move it up a bit. What I would really like is to have a bunch of different ones that it cycles through randomly. So I've already made that because typing it will be horrible. And if I just paste this in here, you can see it's not very complicated. I just have a table full of different lines of things. And then I have a return that picks a random one of them and gives that back to weak auras. Now it's updating on every frame, which is no good. So I'm just going to switch it to trigger update. And now every time this aura triggers, I'll get a new one displayed up here. So if I smite, I get some things popping up. And there we go. So that's working. But what if I wanted to add this to my mount macro, where every time I mount it up, I would do that as well. Maybe I wanted to say it and /yell or something. Or maybe I want to add it to Holy Fire. So whenever I cast Holy Fire, then I have that appear. Now I could make another aura, but maybe I want to do it in a macro. So if I bring up macros and I try to create a new one, and whatever, I'll just use the yelling guy and I'll call this Holy Fire. So if I try to paste it in there, I quickly run out of room. You're only allowed 255 characters. So that's not going to work. I need to do this another way. What I'm going to do is break out that code into an add-on. And that way I'll be able to access it everywhere, and it'll be easy to edit with a proper text editor. So I'm going to log out of Warcraft, and I'm going to open up my Warcraft add-ons folder. Suppose I should get on the right screen. So here's my Warcraft folder, and I'm going to go to Interface, and then Add-ons, and I'm going to make a new folder. And I'm going to call this Demo Add-on. And so this is the name of the add-on we're going to make. Now I need to create 2 files. I'm just going to use Notepad because I'm sure everyone will have it. And the first file we need to make is a TOC file. And this instructs Warcraft what to do with the the contents of this folder. It sort of describes our add-on to it. So I'm going to hit Save As, and I switch this to all files. And I'm going to use a UTF-8 because UTF-8 is awesome. Now I need to give this a name, and it has to be the same as the folder that I'm saving this into. So I'm going to call this demo addon.toc and hit Save. Now this only has a couple of lines. The first one is the version of Warcraft that you've tested against. So right now I'm in patch 5.2. So I just add the word interface 5.2. It's just the format that it uses. And every time there's a major patch, you'll have to come up and update this version number after you've tested your Warcraft add-on to make sure that it works. The next thing you need to do is add a name for your add-on. And you do that with title. So I'm going to call this demo add-on. In fact, maybe I'll give it a cool name. And this is shown on the add-on screen in that place where you can turn them on and off. And also shown on that screen is the notes field. And this is sort of a short description of what the heck your add-on does. So I'm going to call this dumping ground for WA functions that got that. And that's all I have to do for this file. It's effectively done. The only other thing that gets added is a list of the files that we're going to load with our add-on. So I'm going to make another file called da.lua, and that's going to have all the actual code in it. So I just have to add that to the end. Save. So that's done. And I'm going to make a new file and save it as, again, all files. And this is UTF-8. And I'm going to call this da.lua. And you can call it whatever you want, just make sure it's the same as what you listed. If you want to have multiple files, you can just add them to the end of your TOC one after another, and they'll get called in the order they're listed. So now I need to take my weakORAS function and paste it in here. So I have my code here, and you can see it's all screwed up. It's all in like one super long line. That's because in Warcraft, they use Unix style line endings, and in Windows, especially in Notepad, you get Windows style line endings, and Windows is not clever enough to convert it for you in its default editor. So you might want to use another editor to do this. I think I'm going to, just to make it a little easier. I'll save this. And I'm going to use this Notepad++. You can see it's the same code as in weakORAS, but it's formatted correctly now because this is a little more clever about line endings. So I have my weakORAS stuff, but it's just sort of standing alone, and that's no good. I need to wrap it in a function I can call. So prefix it with function, then you just give it a name. So I'm going to call this thou shalt. At the very end, just like in weakORAS, I give it an end so that it knows where to stop my function. And I'm effectively good to go. What this will do is make a function that I can call anywhere in Warcraft that I can run code. And I can just say thou shalt, and it will return a random string from in this list. Now, it's generally bad practice to just go putting your functions all over the default namespace because some other add-on might also make something called thou shalt. So usually what you do is you put them into a table that has a prefix that's sort of appropriate only to you. For example, weakORAS has like a WA prefix on everything they do, and shared media puts stuff into LSM. We're going to do something similar. All we have to do is declare our table. So I call this DA, but if you were doing one, you might want to use your character name or something like that. And then we just assign it to a table. And then I have to move this into my DA space. So all I do is prefix this with DA dot, and I'm done. So now I have an object DA with this function thou shalt. And if I wanted to add another one, I could just do function DA dot, I don't know, hi mom. And maybe this returns x divided by y, and it takes in some functions, x and y. And I don't know, maybe I'll multiply by 100. So this would be a super simple convert to percentage thing. So once those are done, I'm good to load up Warcraft and have these controls. But as long as I'm here, I'm going to point out that there's this thread here on MMO Champion that basically explains how to do exactly what I just did. And the reason they have this here is because people will sometimes post code snippets on the internet in various places, like in the MMOC interface forums. For example, here's some code that hides the little dragons at the end of your menu bar. So rather than installing a full add-on to do really simple things, you might just need 2 lines of code. And why install an add-on when you can just make your own tiny little thing and put that in there? So here's a code snippet, and I'm just going to copy it because I know it works. And if I paste this to the end of my function here, and I'm going to put these on separate lines just so it's a little easier to read. And I could go through, and there's a bunch posted here, and if you read the forums, you'll see people sometimes post other ones as just quick fixes for minor problems. So I'm going to add those, and you can just keep building up your own custom add-on to do these sorts of things for you. I'm going to bring up Warcraft again with my newly written add-on. And if I look in add-ons, I have my demo add-on loaded here. It has my name. And then I come into Warcraft. I can go into weak auras now, and I can replace that super long function in here with the nice short one I wrote. So for example, in fact, I'll close this first. Because it can access it anywhere, I can /run print da.thoushalt, and it adds it to my chat frame. And I can do the same thing in weak auras now. I can take all of this stuff, I guess I have to do it with a keyboard, and I can just go return da.thoushalt. And now when I smite this guy, it still works as it always has. But now it's using my add-ons functions rather than having me go off and write my own things or have it written into my aura there. So let's say I wanted to go back to my macro now. And I can come and do /macros, /macro. And where it no longer fit, now I can do something like /cast holy fire. And I can also add /script send chat message, and then the name of my function, da.thoushalt. And that's all. Send chat message is the way that Warcraft is, that's how an add-on instructs Warcraft to send a say or a tell or something like that. So send chat message is just enough to do a normal say. And if I put that on my bars, /macro. Whenever I click it, I'm going to cast a holy fire and do a say. So there you go. That's the basic process of breaking stuff out into add-ons. You can also use that in other places, like with that one we defined that did a sort of percentage. I can do /run print, I guess I call that da.himom. I would recommend giving your stuff useful names. So let's say like 3 out of 5. We can see we get a 60 there, so it did a real quick conversion to a percentage for us. Also notice that the code we added to kill our little dragons has run, and they're no longer on the ends of our bars. So we don't need to have a full add-on dedicated to that. If we just need 2 or 3 lines of code, we can glom that into the end of our own super add-on.